Hello, everyone. It's your girl, Miracle Sins, and you're watching the GSL Talk Show. Tonight, we're going to be chatting with a phenomenal woman named Stephanie Anderson, so stay tuned.
That I'm not the type of girl that goes. Yeah, it's a miracle, baby. Wishing I would have a one night affair.
Welcome back to the GSL Talk Show. I'm here with Miss Stephanie Anderson. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, ma'am. Welcome to the GSL Talk Show. We're glad to have you here as well. Tell us where you're from and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, born and raised. I have also been living here in Atlanta since
Oh,
I actually moved here when I was 16 years old. So you do the
mm,
math on that, almost 16 years
okay,
that I've been
okay.
in Atlanta. And I'm kind of sad because I'm like, I've been in Atlanta longer almost than I was in my hometown. So
Mm,
I feel like I'm kind of an ATLian, but
right, right. It's so funny and interesting, like when I'm recording with people that are actually here, because it's like, I mean, one of these old days we'll have a studio and we can just meet in person for these type of chats. But
yeah,
I mean, until then, hey, you never know. I'm
it's so
talking to
annoying.
people from around the world. Cool. Look, let me find out we neighbors.
Right. So you're in Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm in the Atlanta area. Yeah,
Okay,
but
nice.
yeah, more near Stone Mountain
Okay,
that way. So yeah, we'll compare cities.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, I mean, well, what are you into? What you have going on, Miss Stephanie?
um, if you don't know, I have been a part of a ministry here in Atlanta called Embassy Church, Embassy City Church.
Hmm.
Um, led by Apostle Brian Meadows and his wife, Pastor Patrice Meadows, and I have been a part of that ministry for the past 11 years. I helped start the ministry. We literally
Mm.
started in their home
Oh wow.
and came up with the name and logo, all that stuff. And so to see 10 years later, we just celebrated 10 years last year. So we're going on 11 years officially. Um,
Mm.
to see us now at 1,000+ members every week. And to be able to have an office and a staff, to be on staff, that's what I've been busy doing for the
Okay.
past years since we moved in this new building. I've been busy being on staff and really trying to make sure that the church is healthy, thriving, and a place that equips people and believers.
Hey, let's go. Let's go, man. Look, I'm sure there's lots to talk about then, right? Look,
Absolutely.
being the founding member of a church and things of that
Yeah,
nature. But that's really cool because on one hand, I'm sitting here thinking like it seems like we got a lot of things in common because I'm on the ministry staff. I guess technically you would say
yeah.
leadership or whatever the case may be at the church that I'm going to. It's Mountain West
Nice.
Church in Stone Mountain and whatnot. And they call me an elementary coordinator. That's my
Oh,
official
nice.
title, but yeah. So oh, might have
So
to look talk some
you
staff
understand
stories.
leadership is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is, for me when it comes to it, like, well, one, I don't know if I feel like it's just a God divine thing because it wasn't like I grew up thinking that this is what I was going to do. I mean, I could see how everything played a part into it being where I am today, but
Mhm.
it definitely was a God led thing because again, when I sit here and share my testimony, man, it's like
Mhm.
again, my background is in theater and acting. So of course, when people talk about those things, they're thinking about the stage, they're thinking about,
Yeah.
um, film and all that type of stuff. And I do that stuff too, but it's like, I don't know. This has been the most fulfilling time in my life, like
Mhm.
being a part of this, but then I didn't get into this until like last year. So even just doing like this talk show and doing daily inspiration and stuff like that, I'm finally in a place of contentment where it's just like I said, I mean, I guess it's just the joy or unexplainable the way God say, or what the Bible tells us, the peace that passes all understanding and things like that. And it took me a long time to get to this place to be like, I'm
Yeah.
actually content. Like I'm cool with just if you want me to stay here, keep doing all the stuff I'm doing right now, I'm
Yeah.
cool with that. You know, but that's a whole other thing. Look, we'll compare and contrast stories. But yeah, I mean, okay, so you're saying you're one of the founding members of this ministry and things of this nature, and now you're on the staff. Um, when you first was talking, you mentioned that you were in that you all were meeting in the home and whatnot. And I mean, when you think about the biblical leaders, right? That's how they did it. And I don't know, I was really reflecting on that. I want to say a few months ago, like how much more should we get back to that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like j- just I guess off the top of your head, like what's the main thing you noticed with the growth and whatnot, like back in the day and then now, like
Yeah.
do you see any like major differences or do you see any, I mean, of course the people, yeah, but I'm just saying like just again, since you've been able to see this growth as it gone, like I'm just really interested to see like or hear your perspective in regards to like not to be like, oh, back then was so great, or oh, now it's so much better, but
Yeah.
that whole thing. I would love to hear what you have to say about
Yeah, yeah.
it.
So, like you mentioned, the early church gathered together, and if you know me, I love Greek words. So, the Greek word for gathering was koinonia, and it just meant community, fellowship. So, the early church, there were a lot of house churches and communities, right? You
Mhm.
didn't necessarily have these mega ministries, but again, this was the first church.
Right.
So, we're seeing just the model and the foundation of what would be to come. So, it's not to say that there's something wrong with mega churches. We're literally quite on the edge of being a mega church. But what I will say is that when you begin to lose sight of, like you mentioned, that original purpose of
Mhm.
community and
Mhm.
fellowship together with other believers, when you lose sight of that and you lose sight of God, then it just becomes, religion without relationship. And then you have this
Mhm.
seeker friendly culture that really doesn't do anything but play to the culture, and begin to look more like the world and what's popular than, like we said, the purpose and the original design of forsaking not the assembling of ourselves together. So when I look at our particular ministry and what I love about it is that I can honestly say, 10 toes down, I gotta say stand on business just because right now
Uh-huh.
I can honestly stand on business and say the same worship atmosphere, the same level of teaching, the same
Mhm.
presence and purity of atmosphere that we had when there were 15 of us in the house, sometimes 7 of us in the house, is resident
Mm.
at the place that we continue to congregate, which is a huge building. It's the same. And for me to have been there from the beginning and remained, it has never lifted. And I'm
Mm.
not exact. There's never been an off Sunday. One of the
Mm.
staples of, our ministry when people come is the atmosphere. When you walk through the door, people are like, "Oh my goodness, you can absolutely feel the presence of God." And so, because I think that we were very intentional with making that a part of our core beliefs and our foundations, our foundation, worship and the word, it has stuck to us like glue.
Mm.
Um, and now the benefit of a mega church is that you don't have to just have 50, 100 people that experience that presence. Now we have, like I said, 1,700 plus that get to experience that atmosphere and
Mm.
have that type of encounter on a Sunday morning. So, yeah.
I mean, that's great, man. That definitely sounds awesome, especially in this world where people are often questioning what's the point of going to church? There's no point. I got God by myself, all this different type of stuff. And that it is good to hear about the good, thriving, Bible based, for real
Yes.
churches and whatnot, because I, there's a lot of stuff going on. And then on top of that, then there's all the different religions to choose from, and it just goes on and on. Where, of course, anybody coming into the world, for example, would just be very confused about like which way to go and stuff. And so, it's good to hear that, that the worship and all that stuff, that God is moving the
Mm-hmm.
same and whatnot, in the ministry, regardless of the number of people. I think, I've really been in this place, like even when it comes to GSL and what I'm doing with this, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like in the beginning, I felt like God was just like, you just be consistent. You just
Mm-hmm.
do. It don't matter how many people watch, no matter many subscribers, no matter none of that. You do it, and I've seen like growth in a whole different way, or I'm looking at it a lot differently than maybe years ago when I was just trying to be on YouTube, for example, by myself. And so now I'm at this place where I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna get up and do daily inspiration. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna keep the talk show going and all this different type of stuff. And so now when I think about the growth of it, I'm like, wow, there's over 1,000 videos of just the daily inspiration. Like that's crazy
Yeah.
because I remember getting discouraged back in the day on my other YouTube channel, just getting discouraged after I did like 12 videos and was like, oh, nobody's talking to me, whatever, and stuff. And I'm like, look at what the Lord did when I just was like being consistent and just being
Yeah.
obedient. And
Yeah.
I do feel like there's something to like, okay, I might need to expand or grow so more people can reach, you know what I mean, and see like what's happening here. Like again, because there's so many amazing people like you that come here and share your testimonies and whatnot, where I'm like, people need to hear it. It's like, I mean, a lot of times it's for me and I receive that, I'm like, okay, Lord, I appreciate being able to talk to this person and that person. But a lot of times I'm like, I mean, more people need to see and hear the amazing things that's going on around the world that God is doing through each individual person. And so I don't know, like I feel like I'm on the brink of something. I have no clue of like what and how or any of that, but I'm like, I think I guess I could resonate with what you were saying about like the importance of more people being able to access like true authentic, worship, leadership, and all those things. So yeah, because I mean, again, the more people that the gospel reaches, right, then who knows? I mean, I know our church say this thing about one more, where it's like, yeah, that one more, who knows, could reach the next one more, sure, and it grows in that way. But then some people have that gift, that swag or whatever it is, that one person, you reach that one, and they reach all the
Yeah.
multitude of people, right? And
Yeah.
so you just never know. Again, with the obedience and whatnot would take you and stuff. So
Absolutely.
I think that's so interesting. Like, oh, so I was thinking also when I was reflecting about the older church, right? I was thinking about, there's all these places in the Bible where they talk about like they put all their money together and they ate together and they did it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what would that even look like in today's time? Like, I'm sure there's people in communities that do that. I mean, I've heard of what are they called? The actual name went away from my mind right now, but the communes, I guess you would say, or the type of places where they share a lot of stuff or whatever. But
Yeah.
what would it really look like for a Christian community to come together in that way, like, and really fellowship in that way? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that y'all's church was exactly like that, but I guess it just makes me think about it when I read it in the Bible and then also hear about the, humble beginnings of places and whatnot. Like I get the reason why we need bigger places to gather and meet, especially once it start to grow. You're like, oh, we can't be everybody at our house, and stuff. But I just wonder, like, am I saying what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
like, what that would even look like in today's
Yeah. I
time.
think,
You know?
there's been controversy around, do we tithe? Should we
Mm,
not tithe? And I think when we think about the tithe, it's connected to the question that you're asking, which is
mm,
when we think about the early church and their willingness to give everything that they had, compared to a church now in the 21st century who's arguing about 10%. I think what it would look like is for us to get a revelation of the fact that everything we have belongs to God anyway.
that
That
part. Yes.
we owe God everything. We owe God our everything. So
Mm,
if you're fussing about 10%, if you're fussing about just a portion, what it really speaks to is the heart posture of a generation that doesn't have a relationship with God. Because if they
mm,
had a relationship with God, they would understand the scripture that says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that I offer my body as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God. That's my reasonable service. That means the least that I can do is give God all of me. So when we think about it in that context, I do believe that we have some churches and ministries that give God their everything. It may not necessarily look like them selling their house, which is what they did in the New Testament, selling their houses and putting all their resources together, because in that context, that might have been absolutely needed. And there might be some places throughout the nation and different countries where that is needed. But there are other ways to give our everything. And that looks like, at the very least, tithing to a local church, local ministry, at the very least, giving back to the least of these, at the very least, giving our all in worship. I think there's so many ways to give God our everything. And I think we see some churches doing it now, but we also see some who don't, unfortunately.
That is so true. That is so true. I think, I guess when you think about what's to come, right? Because we know that things are not going to get better, even though we hope that it does, right? But according to the Bible, when you look at it, it's like, this is just gonna keep kind of going downhill in a way, right? And it's like, what if we do get to that place where we probably should have all did that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even know what we would even do, because again, for example, I hear people, they like to talk about, oh, what we should eat, what we shouldn't eat, and all this different type of stuff. But I'm like, how can you really, really try to present that to people when you know at the end of the day, like, none of us is growing our own food and none of us have our own, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying there's not farmers and stuff. There probably are some people out there. But what I'm saying is majority of us don't even like know how to do any of that stuff, And so it's like, so for example, to present to people that, oh, this is bad and that is bad and yo, eat this and don't eat that and that, when I feel like the Bible don't even do that, I feel like, but maybe I'm misunderstanding, I don't know, but but I just feel like, I guess I'm kind of concerned because maybe it's the part of me that's also a mom, and I guess you start thinking about a whole lot of different stuff when you got a little person to look at and stuff, and it's just, I think we in America at least, and I know this is probably way deeper than you thought we was gonna go today, but I guess I just feel like we are just so like, how would I say, like, maybe oblivious, or maybe for some reason we think that the persecution that, for example, that we read about in the Bible, we feel like, oh, it's not going to happen to us. But when we know that people around the world are dealing with different aspects of persecution, especially as believers, and so it's like, who are we to think that something won't happen to where we would need to come together? And then like you said, we already fighting about tithes, you know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't gonna lie, like I've been saying on here, and I got to know a few of my neighbors after I said this, but I don't really know. Like I said, like, for example, if you were my neighbor right now, I have no clue because you could be down the street. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? and because I feel like we don't know each other like that. You know what I mean? Like, even the neighbors and stuff like that. I got a chance to meet people across the street and stuff, but I don't remember their names. You know what I'm saying? So what if it really came to the point where, like, man, we should have really been fellowshipping like the Bible said? Like, that's all. I'm sorry. I guess the home church thing got me thinking, right? You can tell me what you think about that. We can move on.
Yeah. I mean, the scripture says, it's not what goes into a man that defiles him, but what comes out, right? So again, it points back to that heart posture, whereas the Old Testament is about, laws that govern our actions and our works, making us righteous and be in right standing, and bringing bulls and goats to be the sacrifice and replacement for our sins. We're working to have God cover us, right, in the Old Testament. But now when Christ comes in the new covenant, in the New Testament, we don't have to do anything but accept him, and his grace is sufficient. And that sometimes is hard for us to wrap our heads around and our minds around. And so you have people that are still talking about, you need to eat this, you need to do that, and they become a little bit more legalistic as it pertains to how we prepare for the things that we already know are coming. But I think it just depends on how you look at it, right? We know that, the scripture says that surely he doesn't do anything in the earth unless he first reveals it to his friends, the prophets. Well,
Mm-hmm.
the Lord gives us authentic prophets who can warn the body of Christ. And if he can warn us, that means that he can give us the revelation to be prepared for these things.
True.
And where there's preparation, we really begin to rule out fear, right? Because there's a lot of fear mongering, and there's a lot of, people that are
Mm-hmm.
building their ministries off of this end times. It was like this, we don't know the hour nor the day.
That's
And
true.
if we don't know the hour nor the day, then all we can do is worry about the time we're in now and what
Mm-hmm.
our role and our purpose, calling, destiny has to do in the grand scheme of things with bringing more people into the kingdom of God. You
Yes.
know, so we have to
Mm-hmm.
just live every day like we're living for God and not being in fear and terror by what we eat, what's breaking out in Africa, what's breaking out across the street, right?
Mm-hmm.
We remain at a place of peace and comfort, knowing that, if we're believers, we really shouldn't have anything to be afraid of, but really looking
Mm-hmm.
forward to the coming back of Jesus Christ, the second coming
Right.
of Christ, So yeah, it's all about perspective.
That's real. Yes, ma'am. I mean, I guess what I'm saying, I guess I say all that to say that, man, we definitely need to work when it comes to the fellowship, man. Like, it's just, I
Yeah.
just, you just see it on social media, the back and forth, like, oh, I don't want to go. Matter of fact, I want to say I might have saw something this morning. Somebody was like, so tell me reasons why you don't go to church. And, people got all their reasons and stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, like I said, one more, man, we got more work to do. And somehow I think we all got to just humble ourselves in our hearts too. I mean, yeah, believe what the Bible say, but then do it. Yes. And then understand that like all of us, I mean, I feel like the thing that equalizes all is that we all sin and fall short, right? That should make all of us be just humbled enough to say, you know what? Why look down at you? Why look down at you? We in the same boat. You know what I'm saying? And so from here, let's come together as Christ told us to, and love each other, and things of that nature. But we struggling with all that. But
Yeah.
anywho, we really do struggle with that, and I don't know. We got to get better. But anywho, so I would love to know like what drew you to the ministry that you're in, and then like what made you go the route, because you seem to be, I don't know, I don't want to guess your age or nothing like that, because I know people say don't, and I know you probably could do the same for me, like, girl, how old are you? Um and stuff, because people look good for their ages and things like that. But I mean, again, I just know, for example, even if we're in a similar age range, or even in the younger ages, the younger people these days don't necessarily seem to be having the mindset that we're talking, like, and so it's always good to hear like where people's background was, and like how you got to
Yeah.
get to the place you are and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm 32. I don't mind sharing that. But like I said, I've been in ministry for going on 12 years now. However, before I got into ministry, I was not doing anything church ministry related. I didn't grow up in church, and I try to
Mhm.
be very cautious when I say that, because I don't want to offend my mama and my grandma.
Got you.
Because while my grandmother was going to church, we were living with my mother, and she worked on Sundays. So the only time
Mhm.
we would go to church would be Easter, Christmas,
Mhm.
the key holidays that you take your
Yeah.
family to church on.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it was very few and far in between.
Mhm.
And then when I was there, it was a Baptist tradition. I didn't necessarily have a frame of reference of my preference, but I just didn't feel like I connected with what was going on. I
That's good.
felt like I was falling asleep in church, and I did not want to go and be there all day. If I'm being,
Mhm.
that was my experience and what I remember. But I
Mhm.
remember always going to I remember we had it's all, what did they say? Offertory time, which was like offering. And then after offering, you would have this moment where you could come up to pray at the altar and kneel down. And I just
Mhm.
loved that part of service. Like,
Mhm.
just as a kid, I'm talking about, I had to be like 6 or 7. I would be the first one up there, and I would look up and be the last one to leave. And I
Wow.
was just down there, just praying. And I didn't have a frame of reference for it. I just knew that I loved that time. I love
Mhm.
that time. So when I think back to those little moments where God was like tugging on my heart, I realized that my calling and my pursuit for God and my hunger for God and heart for God didn't start necessarily when I started this church, but God
Mm-hmm.
had that in me from the very beginning. My
Yeah.
my mom tells a story all the time about when I first got saved. I was about or got baptized. That's what it was. I got
Mm-hmm.
baptized, and I told my peers the next day, Monday at school, when I was trying to get my snowsuit off, I don't need no help. I'm saved.
Yes.
So whatever encounter I had, it must have really meant something to me even at that age. I remember even having I told my husband this. I remember having these visions, whenever I felt like I was going through a tough time, because I grew up in the hood. So
Mm.
I don't know if you've ever met somebody that, like, we called it bougetto, like you bougie but you grew up in the ghetto.
I heard of.
I have always had this bougie taste, and we didn't have no money. Like, I
Mm.
always had this, I just felt like I was supposed to be an heiress to
Mm.
like I was
Listen.
supposed to, like, Oprah adopt me because I got separated from you at some, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I would look around me and my surroundings, and it's dilapidated and it's impoverished, and I just remember having moments where, even in fear because of the gunshots and the people that were being murdered around the neighborhood, I remember a vision of me being in the palm of God's hand. And I just remember just sitting there and just, like, talking to him. And this is when I was
Mm.
young. Like, I just remember sitting there just talking to God and just finding this level of comfort. Now, I didn't have, like I said, context for what any of this was.
Mm-hmm.
But when I tell you that by the time I got to Atlanta, met my then boyfriend at the time, who connected me with the pastor of the ministry that we helped build, the minute I got plugged into that soil, the minute I got into the atmosphere that was ripe for who I was,
Mm.
it's like acceleration.
Mm.
It's like my body caught up to where my spirit had already been.
Mm.
Like, it's like my spirit was like, we was waiting on you. It's like, we was just waiting on you. I'm talking about, I would open up my mouth, and the type of intercession that would come out. I am not joking with you. I had never heard a Dr. Cindy Trim pray. I had never heard of whatever you want to even call it. It doesn't even matter. I didn't have a frame of reference. All I
Mm-hmm.
know that there was an intercession that came out of me that was almost like it was there long before I ever practiced it or had a revelation of what that even meant.
I'm
And
sure.
from that moment on, I was like, oh, I'm sold out. What are you talking about? Like, why didn't nobody tell me that Jesus was, like, real? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we talk
Right.
about the church. Yeah, but no, like, we're friends.
Yes.
I love him. You know what I'm saying? I'm like,
Yeah.
I was like, so I would say that it was Embassy City that I had an encounter that filled me with the Holy Ghost. So
Mm.
before I was saved, yes, I had understanding of the religion, but Embassy City, I got filled with the Holy Spirit. I had a relationship with God, had a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with Jesus, had a hunger. I fasted for the first time in my life. I did a liquid fast 3 days straight. Well, it wasn't even just liquid, it was water only 3 days
Mm-hmm.
straight. And I was just sold out. So yeah, that's kind of like my initiation story into the faith.
Well, it's beautiful, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, because I mean, like I said, it's always interesting to hearing, different people's perspective. Like some people come to, faith later in life, some come real, or so it's beautiful to hear everybody's testimonies, and I think it helps for people to understand that, hey, you're not alone in whatever way that you come to Christ. Just come to Christ. You know what I'm saying? Just come.
Yeah.
Just come. I mean, actually, there was some things that I could definitely relate to and whatnot. Because as you were talking, I was thinking about actually another thing I was reflecting on recently. That, well, one, again, you just showed us how important it was as a child for you, and I think for whatever reasons we not everybody, I'm not saying everybody, but I think sometimes, again, for example, okay, and when I was younger or whatever, I felt like I always got told stay in a child's place and things of that nature. And I wouldn't even be the one really saying or doing nothing, but I would be, it was always that said to me. And I think it was a spiritual attack because, your girl talk every day now. So I'm like, oh, the enemy was trying to shut me up when I was young. Got it. But then I didn't understand, why I'm being treated like I'm the one, I'm the bad one.
Yeah.
Anyway, so but yeah, we like to, I guess, minimize like us what children say and stuff. And I get it, we want to try to show to kids and things of that nature, and of course teach them, right? We don't want them out here saying and doing whatever. Like, again, I have conversation with my son. He talks to me how, and stuff like that, and expresses himself. But then I'm like, okay, now sometimes you got to understand that I'm mommy, and where it's
Yeah.
gonna stop at, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So definitely put boundaries and whatnot. But I say all that to say that even what I'm seeing in the kids ministry at our church is that these kids are really, aware, you know what I'm saying? And they know the stuff that's going on in their families. Like they want to pray about it. Because even when we started, that's one thing I felt like once I came on to the ministry that I'm doing, a part of now. They were going through and they were doing stuff, they was worshiping, they were doing all the stuff that
Yeah.
I'm like, they don't have a prayer moment in here right now. Like, I'm like, there's no moment for them, like an altar call, like, moment like that. And so I, kind of mentioned that to the director at the time and whatnot. And so once we started to do that, I just started to see like even some
Wow.
of the stuff that the kids was praying, it was like wanted prayer about, from bullies to things
Yeah.
going on in the household, you know what I mean? Like real stuff. Now my son, he might get up there and be like, I want a dog, you know what I mean? But still the fact that that you can ask God for that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like he's 5. So I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like we gotta sow those seeds into the children because
Yeah.
because they well, not just because they matter, of course, because they matter, but then they're the future. And then if we don't do it now, what the pastor said, he say if what we make a option will become what won't be a priority to the future generations. You know what I mean? Like, so again, for us, if we, for example, you just shared your testimony about, the family only kind of went on the Easters and the Christmas
Mhm.
and things of that nature. Let's just say you didn't even have those experiences. Like, where
Right.
would you be today? And that has such an impact on children. Like, I can just even see, like, once I started to go back more regularly and whatnot,
Mhm.
um like the year before I got on with ministry, I felt very led to, it was, we know that everything happened with the pandemic and whatnot. So I kind of slowed up and I was doing stuff online and I was getting my word and whatnot. But I felt led, I want to say, what was the summer? Maybe it was like the summer of 2022, whenever it was. I felt led to start back going. And I was like, okay, we going. Like, it's one thing I'm praying for my husband because I don't think he understands the fellowship and why we should
Yeah.
do it and whatnot. He's probably one of them Easter Christmases people. But my thing is like, well, while you figuring that out, we got a son that we need to be, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and go. And but I've seen the impact it has on him because now the little guy prays, he sings, you know what I mean, and all these things that obviously he's been exposed to, but you could see it growing in him. And
Mhm.
so it's just like, I don't know what he's gonna do in the future, but I think that at least he's gonna know where to go. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? At least he's gonna know where to pray. At least he's
Yeah.
gonna know, I guess not just say the basics or whatever the case may be. And hopefully by seeing me or whatever the case may be, then hopefully that will, encourage and inspire his walk in whatever direction that God takes him and stuff. And so yeah, man, the kids, man, yeah, do it for the kids. Go on in there, you know what I'm saying? Get that
Yeah.
fellowship going, for
Absolutely.
yourself too, though. I mean, do it for
Mhm.
yourself, sure, but definitely if you are a parent and whatnot, because it just has such a huge impact. I was
Absolutely.
gonna tell you some more stuff about the kids ministry, but it don't matter. Let's get back to let's get back to. But okay. Let me tell you one more story. So you know how you was talking about you were in church and you was feeling like kind of bored, sleep, things of that nature. Like I was the person that would like take the hymn book and be trying to make songs like like my own melodies to the hymn book. And it reminds me of this quote that I heard recently. They said, "You know hymns, but you don't know him."
That's
But and
funny.
unfortunately, I think that is the truth for a lot of people, man. And
Mhm.
whew, that's a terrible
Yeah.
place to be. I hope that we get right, man. I really do.
For sure. For
Anyway.
sure.
So the ministry work. So you got plugged in and you said I'm sold out and you've been running ever since, right? And so now you're at the place where you're on the staff and things of that nature. You want to tell us about your position and what
Yeah.
you're doing in the ministry, things like that?
Sure. Yeah. So for the first 5 years, well, when we started the church, I did some of everything because you need everything to be done. So I was on the dance, I was doing armor bearing, I was a greeter. And then once we grew to a certain place, I was the connections director. So this is basically like over membership intake, all of that. And I did that for 5 years.
Okay.
Um, and so after the first 5 years of me doing that, I was actually able to go to seminary and get my master's in divinity, basically a degree in theology. And with that degree, that's when I was able to get the position that I'm in now, which is the ministry director. And what that is I essentially make sure that our current pastors, elders, and ministers, not only are they properly trained and developed, but that we're out in the community serving, doing outreach ministry, praying for the sick, and also in reach. So making sure that we're able to connect with our members, making sure that we're showing up for, the baby showers, the all that good stuff. But also corporately, on a corporate level, making sure that we're having baptisms regularly, communion, making sure we're taking our communion regularly, hosting baby dedications, and all of the events that are led by, the clergy. And then the flip side of that is anybody that wants to be licensed and ordained. We've put together a program, a school where they can go through, similar to seminary, a process and a program where they can learn, be educated, developed, and then eventually be licensed and ordained. So that's kind of the scope of everything that I do.
Girl, listen, you a busy lady out here. Shoot. Sounds like you're doing a lot.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how is it going? How long has it been since you've been doing this? And how's it
Yeah,
going for
so
you?
now it's about 6 years. Yep. So I've been doing the ministry director position for 6 years. We actually
Mm,
just opened up the school.
mm,
So the internship program is what we call it. That's our licensing and ordination track. That has been going for the past 4 years, but I just partnered with the individual who was over that program to create a school so that
mm.
not only do our people who want to be licensed and ordained get to go through the school, but we're opening it up in the fall to anybody that wants to get an accredited degree from a ministry school. So just like a Ron Clark, not Ron Clark, that's the wrong Ron. Rod Parsley, yeah,
Mm.
he has a school. Oral Roberts. So just like, Christian University, if you want to get your degree in biblical studies, if you want to get your degree in the languages, Greek, Hebrew, we have that track for you, and we're going to be opening that up to not just our church, but anybody that wants to take it in the fall. So about 6 years.
Wow. That sounds awesome, man. Sounds like a lot of great opportunities and whatnot for growth and things of that nature. I know people talk a lot about discipleship and whatnot, and I don't know if that's just another area we falling short in sometimes,
Yeah, yeah,
and so it sounds like you guys have at least have plenty of opportunities for people to get plugged in. And that's one of the things I noticed even at the church that I go to. I know they talk to the staff a lot about, like, shoulder tapping people and, having conversations and, encouraging people that, hey, you can serve here or you can serve there, or, and things of that nature. But I don't know, I guess for me, like, for example, when I was coming, or just going and not working the way I'm doing now, um, like I would go and then I would feel this urge, like I need to get into a small group, or I need to
yeah,
get more involved. Like I would
yeah,
feel that just sitting in the, the service and whatnot. And I know that, I mean, I guess like when you feel a certain way, you think it maybe everybody do, right? But then
hmm,
it seems like majority of us, we just go and do the
yeah,
routine. We just go
yeah,
reap whatever benefits, whether it be the word and worship, the activity. We'll go and do that stuff and reap. And then it's like, but we forget to you need to probably be sowing somewhere and whatnot. Because
yeah,
again, I mean, I'm not sitting here trying to take the fool, you know what I mean, to be like, oh yes, because I introduced the prayer, but I really do like. Well,
hmm,
one, I don't know how long they was doing the format that they was doing before, you know what I'm saying? And you just see like you could have so much an impact, you as an individual, you know what I mean? Like if you get
right,
plugged in, if you do whatever the thing is. I feel like I have so many conversations with people where I'm like, you're needed and you're important. Like you never know like what you can bring to your ministry or to ministry in general, right? Whatever the Lord wants you to do. I mean, even if it's simple as, not say it's simple, but for example, you could be the blogger, you could be the online person, you could be but
Mhm.
do something, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Do something to share
yeah,
the gospel. But for some reason, I think we all like to think that, oh, okay, well, they got it, the church got it together. You know what I'm saying? But
ab-
it's like, well, yeah, but
mhm,
it seems like all of us are supposed to be doing some part of this. We're supposed to be some
absolutely.
part of the body.
Every joint supplies.
Yeah, you know. So yeah, I mean, look, we calling y'all. Look, we calling this. Look, she done told all kinds of things they got going on in their ministry where y'all can get plugged in. Same at
Yeah,
our church. There's plenty of opportunities. Host a small group. You know what I'm saying? Get on
yeah,
a hope team. That's what we call them.
yeah.
Do something. You might be the person that greet the door, but for
Hmm.
example, I know they talk about all the time the greeters, for example, like that's such an important thing. Like that smiling face when people come
Yeah.
in, you don't know how much you could lift somebody day just that. So
Mhm.
you can do something, right? Everybody can do
Absolutely. Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Yes. So I mean, it sounds like you're already busy, right? But I mean, hey, like, well, I feel like you might have some things going on outside of the ministry that you might want to share with us too. I don't know. Don't call
Yeah.
me no prophet liar, but I feel like you not just doing stuff there. I feel like you got
Yeah.
other stuff going on. Like, is this right or am I wrong here?
No, for sure. Yeah. I have my own ministry
All
outside of
right, well, bye. Okay, girl, got the
yeah.
own ministry. Well, what's going on with your ministry?
Yeah, so outside of course, preaching engagements just for Stephanie Anderson Ministries, I have a ministry that's very dear to my heart called Purpose Journey. And
Mm-hmm,
that started in the year 2020 when everything went crazy.
mm-hmm.
But in the midst
Lord
of that
shaking up all
chaos and
kinds of things
crazy,
2020.
right, it's like, do we even remember 2020? It's like, yeah. But in the midst
That's
of that
crazy.
chaos and all of
Mm-hmm.
that, hell that broke loose, a lot of people, had things that were beautiful that birthed out of that. And one of those things for me was the purpose journey. I absolutely love the purpose journey. It's a community right now on Facebook of 600 plus women.
Mm-hmm.
And we do Bible study. We're going through the Bible in a year every Monday and Wednesday morning. We're literally in Leviticus right now. And who wants to read Leviticus? Nobody for real, but we're reading it. And we're actually getting ready to, every year, we do a Purpose Journey conference. Um, it's going to be hosted at Embassy City this year. We're believing God for 300, 500 women strong. It's November 5th through the November 7th through the 9th. Sorry, November 7th through the 9th. And every year we host it. Last year we did a retreat. And the year before that we did the standard conference. And this year we're excited to be back in person for a full out conference and not just a retreat space, but
Mm.
to have our Purpose Journey ladies come through. And then the last thing I'll say is the reason why Purpose Journey even got started was because it was a mentorship group where the Lord told me, hey, I need you to disciple a small group of women. So I said I
Mm.
wanted to cap it at 10. That same night that I posted it, we got 8 women, and then a few days later it was capped out. And that's how it started. We would do 10 days,
Wow.
literally concentrating on presence of God, worship, prayer. We would fast together. And I would teach the ladies that we don't want to pursue purpose beyond our pursuit of our creator, because he's the one that created us. So how are we going to find
Mm-hmm.
out why we're created, what we're designed to do if we don't go to the manufacturer? And it would
Mm.
be a life transforming experience. And we're getting ready to open up that mentorship program again in the month of May. So those are the things that I'm up to.
Mm. Girl, you go, girl. Yes, I love it. I think that's so needed too. I know I hear people. Listen, look, I might need to come take some notes or something because I've been trying. I feel like the Lord has been leading me to kind of, I don't know if it's discipling people or just being there alongside of some people, whatever the case may be. And it's been a little tough because I'm like,
Yeah.
Lord, listen, you done put people around me. I feel like I got whatever they need to, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, oh yes, I went through this, I went through that. And I'll be
Mhm.
trying to share and pour, and then it's like either they don't want to do it, they ain't ready, or whatever. And I'm like, well, Lord, what you want me to do? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying my best, but I can't make people do it.
Absolutely.
So I've been kind of struggling with that because I'm like, I don't know. I mean, Lord, you gave us all free will. I don't know why you did that, like and stuff. So you said you was able to get these ladies together, and y'all was able to really tap in, but obviously I believe that the women probably really was ready, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know what. Uh, if you got some advice, I'd love to take it because I like listen. Because I get people say they ready, right? But then
It's
they
not a
don't
12
be
step.
ready. What's
Yeah.
that?
I was saying, I tell people the secret sauce is Jesus. It's not the 12-step program or,
Mm,
model, other than the fact that my foundation is Jesus. Like I really create and curate an atmosphere where people intentionally spend time asking the Lord for the next steps and the instructions for their life. So the reason why they
mm,
come out clearer and the reason why they come out discovering their purpose, or the reason why they come out feeling confident in their purpose, is because they've spent a concentrated amount of time with their creator. And I just
mm.
the atmosphere for them to do that.
Nice. Keep that in mind. Yes, because I think people either they come to me for advice or things of that nature, and I'm like, I try to pour and be like, and then they say, oh, you got this, you got that, and that, and I'm like, well, I'm pointing them to Christ at the end of the day, because I'm like, well, this is why, and
Yeah.
all I did was step on faith, and this is, I mean, you seeing fruits from that, you can do it too. It ain't just for
Yeah.
me, like. Yeah, I don't know. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's a whole nother thing by itself. But that sounds amazing though that you guys have been able to get together and get retreats going and whatnot. And the reason I brought up the other women or whatever that sometimes I talk to is because sometimes people are going through, for example, I feel like the female leadership, there's something missing a little bit. Like I don't know if you maybe you yeah, maybe it's different, but I'm
Mhm.
just saying like I feel like for example, like when you read in the Bible, it talks about, the older women taking the younger women, teaching them how to be wives and all that type of stuff. I feel like that there's some disconnect in that right now to where we don't fully have that. And then like, I mean, okay, I'm working on year 8 of marriage, but I mean, we really need them ones that been married 10 plus, like 15 plus to really be pouring into us, you know what I mean? So then we can pour into the twos and the ones, and stuff like that. And I feel like there's a little bit of a gap. Have you seen that? Or is this
No,
one
yeah, for
observation I've
sure.
made?
I think
Well, it
wherever
sounds like your ministry kind of is, but
it is
you're in
intergenerational.
your 30s yourself, you know what I mean? So it's like, what about them people before? But
Yeah,
maybe God is using us because we willing to do it. I don't know. Maybe the older people weren't willing to do it.
yeah.
I don't know.
I think there's a couple of layers to that question. Um, One, wherever there is misunderstanding, there can be, or well, I'll say this: wherever there's misunderstanding, there can be the fear of the unknown, right? So
Mm,
just based off an older generation not understanding what Gen Z is going through, what millennials going through, that
mm-hmm.
creates a disconnect. And then
Yeah.
you have the flip side of that, of the offended feeling that maybe a Gen Z or a millennial will feel when they are
Mm,
corrected or attempted to be discipled by the older
yeah.
generation. So
Yeah.
when there is the misunderstanding and a lot of things that go unspoken, then you'll have that breach. What happens
Mm,
is, or what needs to happen is, there has to be intentional conversation between the two groups so that the both of us feel safe. So
mm-hmm.
we feel safe knowing that, okay, the older generation is not just here to complain about what we're not doing, what they used to do, and how we suck at what we're doing now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the older generation needs to not feel like they're not appreciated, and like we're literally standing on their shoulders, that they've gone before us, and the
Mm-hmm.
reason why we have access to some of the opportunities and the things that we're doing now is because they paved the way. So there has
Exactly.
to be a mutual appreciation of
Mm-hmm.
what both bring to the table. We need
Mm,
to express that, like you just said. Hey, we need the 10s and the 15-year marriages to pour into the 1s and the 2-year marriages. Like,
mm-hmm.
the more we can vocalize and express that need and be vulnerable, the more I feel like the older generation will begin to bridge that gap. But it has to be an appreciation on both sides, a mutual respect on both sides, and intentionality behind that conversation happening in our ministry.
Mm. Yes, yes. And my other thing with that is stick the Bible too, man. Like, why we gotta, I feel like I don't know if it's just the thing about people giving their opinions and then we're like, oh, I don't want to hear that then. You know what I'm saying? If you're so just stick to what the Bible says. Like again, teaching the women to be wives, like teaching them according to whatever the words say. Like I,
Yeah.
I don't know why we've gotten so far, but hopefully we work on that because I just feel like I'm always observing again, the tension between men and women, whether they dating, whether they married, there's this whole call for, of course, that men don't want to get married now. Okay, don't see the point, all this different type of stuff. Now I'm great, I feel like I did right. I married a great man. Like, it's not to say everything's perfect. And we neither one of us is perfect, nothing like that. But I think I did all right. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not complaining or whatever. But I'm just saying, like, when I see this stuff happening around you, you just have a heart for people. You know what I mean? Like, I really just would love
Yeah.
to see us come together. Again, the fellowship, all of us, and then the men and women, the marriage, all of that stuff. We know it's gonna get attacked. We know what the enemy trying to do,
Hmm.
but we can at least do our part to help fight.
Yeah,
Give us some strong tools to fight with and stuff. So
absolutely.
anyway, sister, I mean, is there anything else you would like to share with us before you go?
No, just thank you for having me on this platform. I definitely pray blessings over you, that you'll continue to, reach and impact those that need to hear these interviews. What you're doing is great. The fact that you have been consistent and not fallen off, no matter what, like you said, the views look like and the reach has looked like. You never know. God can just breathe on that thing, and next thing you know, you're doing an interview with Jackie Hill Perry. You never know. So many blessings to you.
Thank you so much. And look, same to you, sister. You keep on keeping on, as they say. Sounds like you're doing some amazing, great things. More blessings to your ministry. Look, with the church and outside of it. And look, I'm
Thank
expecting.
you.
Look, come on back and share with us what you done had going on and whatnot.
I sure will. I sure will.
Wishing I would have a one night affair.
Thank you so much for watching the GSL Talk Show, and thank you to Miss Stephanie for joining us tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and check out Miss Stephanie's ministries. Yes, both of them. All right, y'all have a great night. Bye bye.